Welcome back to our special election night coverage on KHOU 11 Plus. We thank you all for staying up with us. Hello, I'm Len Cannon.
Good to be with you. I'm Mia Gradney. You were just looking at some of the results starting to come in. Right now, Christian Menifee leads the race for Congressional District 18. But keep in mind, the winner needs 51% of the vote. Let's send it now to Jason Miles live at the Menifee Watch Party. And we understand we heard from Menifee himself just in the last 10 minutes or so, Jason.
Hey there, guys. It's really hard to hear you. Let me first say that. This room is crowded. It is loud. The music is pumping, and Christian Menifee is mingling. He's stepping a little farther from us now, but he's been going through a line of hugs and conversations throughout this very thick crowd at a establishment called The Spot here in the Edo/3rd Ward area. The Harris County Attorney, Mr. Menifee, entered the room maybe about 10 or 15 minutes ago. City Councilwoman Tiffany Thomas made a few remarks, and Menifee made a few even briefer remarks, just telling the crowd he appreciated their support and he will have more news in a short while. But as we've seen these early results come in, he is on top of this race in District 18. He has been polling in the lead for quite some time, and as we have spoken about extensively, we do anticipate a runoff between him and potentially Amanda Edwards. Jolanda Jones is also running third, but right now he is feeling excited, and as I mentioned a little earlier, he told me at a polling location this afternoon that he got up at like 2 o'clock. He basically went to bed last night and could not sleep because he was so nervous, and a good nervous about today's election, and it turns out his good nervousness may have paid off because he is feeling good right now as he mingles with several elected officials and a whole bunch of regular folks who went out to the polls to support the Harris County Attorney, perhaps the Harris County Attorney turned congressperson in the next couple of months. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Jason Miles there at that live scene with Christian Menifee's camp. Thank you. We're checking in now at Election Central, where we also are hearing from the head of Harris County Elections, Tanisha Hudspeth.
Yeah, Orko Mano is there at the Election Central. He has more of what Hudspeth had to share on this election night. We're all wondering, all going smoothly, Orko?
Yeah, Len, Tanisha Hudspeth says that everything has gone pretty smoothly today. Obviously, at the beginning of Election Day, there are always some hiccups, but she says there were no major issues. Right now, we're standing inside election headquarters. This is basically a warehouse near Bush Airport, and they've transformed this, as you can see, into a huge area where all these election workers will be counting ballots. Right now, those ballots have not arrived yet. All the ballots that were cast today will be on their way here to election headquarters. We're expecting the first batch of ballots to arrive within the next half hour or so. As you mentioned, we spoke with Tanisha Hudspeth just a little bit ago about how today went. I also asked about getting those ballots here in a timely manner. We know Harris County is a large county, and this is near Bush Airport, so if you're a voter who went to a location that's farther away from here, you can imagine it'll take some time for those ballots to arrive here. So here's what Tanisha Hudspeth had to say about that and how voting has gone today.
Today is the end of Election Day. Well, for some, because we still have voters in line voting at some of our vote centers throughout Harris County. Polling locations closed at 7, but every single voter that was in line by 7 o'clock p.m. will still be processed. And yes, we still have voters in line, so that's a good sign. They're making sure they cast their ballot in the November 4th election. Early voting and mail ballot results are in. You can find the results at harrisvotes.com. Unofficial results. So early voting in person and mail ballots was 212,835 voters. 212,835. That's the amount of individuals who voted by the end of early voting. That was about 8% of the vote. Election day so far, over 226,000 voters. And like I said, voters are still voting. Election totals so far, a little over 430,000 combined. But again, that number will continue to move. Results are on Harris Votes and will be updated throughout the evening. As vote centers shut down this evening, election judges will return equipment to one of the 5 regional centers across Harris County, which includes election headquarters where you're standing right now. So again, those election workers, if they still have voters, they're processing those voters, will finish paperwork and forms and documents, and then they will proceed to close down the poll and continue on with compliance to get to the closest regional collection site. Unofficial results will be posted on harrisvotes.com at regular intervals throughout the night. The timeliness of the results this evening is driven by how promptly our judges close their polls and deliver equipment to their designated regional collection centers. So in terms of calls and tickets that we've received for today, there was about 46% of voters calling regarding vote centers. Where can I go vote? As you all know, here in Harris County, voters can vote countywide. So voters had a choice of 600 different vote centers to vote at. About 13% about voter registration. When it comes to behind the scenes in vote centers, about 17% on equipment, another 17% on processing voters. This is how we support our election judges throughout the day, and another 16% for election services and procedural questions. This is no different from any other election. On the start of election day, we're taking calls throughout the day, and at the top of the morning, while we're all working out the kinks, including election judges, we are processing and supporting election workers throughout the day. So I hope that if you're watching and you voted today, that you told one of the election workers, thank you for serving, for stepping up to serve. Are there any questions? Yes, well, we surpassed. The question is in regard to how the turnout has surpassed previous elections. This is an odd year. I know people mean, what does odd year mean? Well, it's not a midterm or presidential. And so we surpassed numbers from 2015, which we compared to, and we're really, really close to the 2023 off-year election. So, like I said, voters are still voting, so it's going to be interesting to see what the last numbers will be. So stick with us, because we're sure to continue moving through the night. Thank you for that question. Any other questions?
Yeah, County Clerk, I know there are 600 vote centers. It's the largest county in Texas, third largest in the country. What measures are put in place to make sure that all the ballots being brought here to election headquarters is done as fast and as smoothly as possible?
That's right. The question is in regard to all the preparation our office handles leading up to Election Day. We are the third largest county in the nation. We are the size of 25 states combined and the largest in the state of Texas. And so when it comes to preparation, we are preparing 9 to 12 months prior to Election Day. So what does that mean? As we are conducting this election right now, we are already preparing for the midterms next November. And what are we doing throughout that time? We're recruiting election workers to serve, to train throughout that time. We're also implementing new legislation. There was a legislative session that took place earlier this year, and many procedures from behind the scenes are being worked on to make sure they're implemented by the time frame, and future measures. We're working on our equipment, making sure that everything is audited and prepared prior to that election. And also, the biggest one of them all, 600 locations doesn't just fall out of the sky, right? So around the year, we are working hard to make sure we meet ADA compliance, and we're working with facilities across the county to be available to be vote centers. So it truly is an around-the-clock operation, and we have a robust staff that does that. There were 6,600 election workers in the field today, but by the time we get to midterms next year, we're anywhere from 12 to 15,000 election workers.
I just wanted to ask for tonight in terms of bringing all the ballots here.
Sure.
Kind of what's being done tonight.
Yes. Sure, thank you for reiterating that. As every single vote center closes tonight, every judge will go to one of our 5 regional collection sites. At those regional collection sites, we'll go through their compliance measures to bring in those boxes. Once those boxes are brought in, then we will start tallying and sending in information that will come here to a central count. So we will be here until every single regional collection site is finished. This is the last stop for tonight. So it's going to take quite a while for 600 election workers or 600 sites to get to those 5. And the last final stop is bringing all that equipment here to election headquarters. Thank you for reiterating. Any other questions? So the question regarding a software transition, it was actually the Secretary of State that had an upgrade to their team system. Harris County did not take software upgrade. We actually have a system that we're working on here, but working to intertwine those have been around the clock leading up to Election Day. And happy to say, by the time early voting began, we worked to the very last minute with the Secretary of State to make sure every voter was qualified to vote by the time early voting started. Thank you. Any other questions? Say that one more time. Any issues? So no major issues where voters could not vote. Everyone was able to vote today. As we said earlier, over 226,000 people were able to cast their ballot. In the morning, there could be some things or things that come up throughout the day, but we have techs in the field to address any concerns and individuals who are able to, be able to address things in real time. So no issues in terms of voters not being able to vote. Yes, thank you for that question. Any other questions? Yes. I've not received a direct report about a certain vote center, but there is a wait time feature on the website. And so election workers are the ones who update that vote center wait time. Could be that they're so busy that they're not updating it in real time. Again, the wait time is a green, yellow, or red. If it's green, go. Yellow means a little bit of traffic. Red very well could mean that there's a line, but it's really hard to tell unless we have some direct examples. Again, the election workers might get busy, but they're asked to update those wait times in certain increments. Thank you. Sure.
Also was curious about if you were able to tell at this time turnout differences between the more urban parts of the county and the more rural.
Not yet. You're a little too early on the data in terms of urban versus inner city, but we could get to that a little bit later. Obviously, you all know, as you look at the results, we had everything from a special congressional race to a special City of Houston race down to propositions. And so those results are available now on harrisvotes.com. We will continue to update those results throughout the rest of the evening.
Now, earlier in that press conference, you saw Harris County Clerk Tanisha Hudspeth and I talk about those 5 regional collection sites. One of them is here at election headquarters. And again, that's where election workers, once they wrap up their polling locations, are dropping off their equipment. You can imagine that will take quite a bit of time, especially with some polling locations having voters still in line by 7 o'clock. Again, over here, you can see over my right shoulder that there are some surveillance cameras. Those are the 4 other collection sites across the county where that equipment is being dropped off right now. Again, we're expecting those first batch of ballots to arrive here at election headquarters in the next half hour or so. We, of course, are going to stay out here and see how that process unfolds as those ballots get here and start to be counted. For now, we're going to send it back to you, Len and Marcelino, back in the studio.
All right. So far, so good out there, Orko Mano. Thank you. There are 17 statewide propositions on the ballot, one of them heavily pushed by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. It commits billions of dollars to dementia research. Marcelino, this is very near to you personally.
Yeah, Len, you know my mother passed away from Alzheimer's, so I've been watching this one very closely. This Proposition 14 right now on its way to passing 68% to 32% with about 38% reporting. This would create DPRIT, the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. It would be a $3 billion investment over the course of 10 years. That's about $300 million per year for the next 10 years to fund research in this space. You might not know, but there's more than 500,000 Texans, families dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's right now. So it impacts a whole lot of people. It impacted my family. It also impacted a lot of close friends of the Lieutenant Governor. This proposition, this type of research funding and investment, they've been trying to pass this, Democrats have, for years, for many sessions. Every time it got to the Texas Senate, it would die there. It wouldn't pass.
That's interesting. And now
this year, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick got behind it. He put his thumb on it, and what he wants happens in the Texas Senate. I talked to him about it a few weeks ago as we led up to Election Day.
At the state capitol in Austin, finding consensus isn't always easy.
I've passed a lot of bills. I've never had more response, positive response from people on anything I've ever offered up.
But fighting dementia,
this can strike anyone, anywhere,
isn't partisan.
You ask, what happens to a family member dealing with dementia? That's what happens. Every time they see them, they realize, I've lost them.
This session, we saw Republicans and Democrats come together to pass SB 5.
This ain't throwing money away. This is giving the people back their money in a way that will save lives.
Members voted.
The measure lost only 21 votes across both chambers. It created the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, a historic, never-before-seen investment of $3 billion in dementia research over 10 years.
We have some of the finest hospitals and finest doctors and researchers in the world now. Why not expand and try to tackle this terrible, terrible disease?
What happens next is up to you. If Texas voters vote yes on Prop 14, DPRIT can move forward and become reality.
I think people will support it because I think people understand it. The personal stories that you hear once a parent or a grandparent no longer knows who their own children are. If this disease strikes your family, it will be devastating.
If Prop 14 is approved, Texas set to become the national leader in dementia research. Houston likely to benefit from a large part of those funds as researchers work to find more treatments and ultimately a cure.
Is this hope for families?
Well, I think it is. That's why I'm asking them to support Proposition 14, not only for their families that they don't know the future of their parents and grandparents, but we can do something about it in Texas.
And as we have noticed, this proposition is leading big time right now. And Marcelino, it's a big commitment. Not only is it good for those suffering from the disease, but also for caregivers.
This disease impacts the whole family. It impacted mine. Caregivers are a huge part of this that we don't think about, so this will be a huge deal. Dementia doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, so this will make a huge difference for a lot of Texas families.
He's preaching tonight. Thank you. All right, let's go to Christian Menifee at his election headquarters tonight.
I'm Christian Menifee, and we're in first place for Congress. Look, my team knows that I typically don't prepare remarks, so I didn't today either, but I have some thank yous, and it's so important in this long, long journey that we've been on that I thank each and every person who's been a part of this journey. Those of y'all who know me know that I am a 4 a.m. in my Bible praying man, so I want to start off thanking God because there have been so many nights, morning prayers on my knees to get us here today. I want to thank Afni and Aaron for hosting us tonight at the Spot, Black-owned business in the district. To my family, my intelligent, capable, beautiful Barack and Michelle Obama wife, Caitlin. Y'all just make sure she don't run in the primary because I'm gonna be in some real trouble. And Malcolm and Gabriel, who have just held this down throughout the entire process. To my loving parents who have accepted every single call, whether it be at 6 a.m. or at 1 a.m. to talk to me, to encourage me, it's meant the absolute world to me. To Caitlin's parents, to Sean, Rose, Patrick, Elena, Jiro, Rachel, Asia, Yasser, my entire family, love y'all. To all my cousins, my aunties and uncles, my uncle is here today. And for those of y'all who don't know, he's from Fifth Ward, Texas. And he walked over there, he said, "Excuse me, Unc." He said, "Oh, you nephew, you ain't Unc." To my fantastic team, Jamie, Delilah, Otis, Roxanne, Kira, Tatiana, Stefan, y'all have kicked tail in this campaign. To my best friend, to one of the Swiss Army knives of this campaign, Bruce Turner, I love you, thank you. Our consultant team, Bayou City Strategies, Lake Research Partners, Vote Shift, Residence Campaigns, North Star Digital, Adwell. Thank y'all for the amazing work that you've done. I can't tell y'all how many times I went to a poll and somebody was like, "Oh, we seen you working out," or "He gonna take Trump to school." Y'all did y'all thing. Thank you very, very much. To the Legacy Sheila Jackson Lee team. Those of you who know anything about the 18th Congressional District know that it is a seat of icons, of Barbara Jordan, of Mickey Leland, Craig Washington, Sheila Jackson Lee, Sylvester Turner, and Erica Lee Carter. And these folks came and embraced me and imparted me so much knowledge about the district and about how best to serve people. So to our former Congresswoman, Erica Lee Carter, to Gerald Womack, to Danielle and Stacy, Julian, Linda Brown, all y'all, thank you. To my trio of legal minds, John, Jay, and Neil, who have been holding me down throughout this whole process, thank you. The Finance Committee, Katie McNerney and Gerald and the Finance Committee, thank you. To the canvassing teams and neighborhood captains, so Deidre, Vilma, Evelyn, every single one of y'all who was out there knocking doors, making sure that folks knew about the message. To two of our fantastic former candidates in the room right now who were unselfish enough to care enough about this district to suspend their campaigns and to endorse my campaign, Carisha Rogers and Ebony Rain Eatman, wave. Y'all take a look because they will have a bright future in public service. To the interns and organizers who have worked hour after hour after hour throughout this entire campaign, thank you. And to the volunteers, to every single person who knocked doors, who gave $1, who hosted a fundraiser, who made calls, who made text messages, thank you. To the many organizations who supported us, from the Congressional Progressive Caucus to Leaders We Deserve, to local organizations like the Caucus, HBAD, and many, many others. To my labor family, especially the Teamsters and TWU and all those folks who are here today. And then, of course, to the elected officials who show so much love. To, God willing, my future colleagues, Greg Kassar, Lizzie Fletcher, former Congresswoman Erica Lee Carter, and, of course, Jasmine Crockett, who have shown so much love to us. To the many, many other elected officials in Harris County and Houston who had my back and who were there with me. And then lastly, to my brothers in this political thing who I met in like 2016, we sat and said, you know what, we're gonna do everything we can to serve our communities, and things have gone pretty well since. Otis Evergaro and Chris Hollins, I love y'all. Look, y'all, this has been a journey. I was sitting back thinking about how I got elected to office just 4.5 years ago, to a position that nobody ever heard of, the county attorney's office. But I did something that folks typically don't do in politics. I shut the hell up, I put my head down, and I got to work on behalf of our communities. We went out and filed the lawsuits against companies trying to expand landfills more deeply in the neighborhoods, and we did it without the cameras, without the glitz and glam. We did it because it was about the work. We went after folks who were using deed fraud to steal homes out from elderly black and brown people who had worked so hard to get their lifetime home. We went after them without the cameras, without the glitz and glamour, but because it was the right thing to do. There's something to be said about when you see people and what they're going through in communities, and you fight like hell for them each and every day. And here we are 4 years later, coming from an office like the county attorney's office, and in one of the most historic seats in this nation, with 16 people in the race, we are in first place. The thing that I've loved the most about this campaign is that although I see so many friends and family throughout this room, this campaign was never about any one of you. This campaign was never about Christian Menifee. This campaign was about the family out in Fifth Ward that is having trouble filling their stomachs because President Trump and Republicans have now cut SNAP. This campaign is about the family out there trying to figure out how they're going to get a family member life-saving treatment because there have been paperwork requirements added to Medicaid that now take away their health care. This campaign has been about the communities like Acres Homes, where you see little kids walking in the middle of the street to a corner store because they have no sidewalks and no grocery stores in their communities. There's something to be said about seeing people and the issues that they're facing and basing your campaign around them and not around yourself. I'm running for Congress not for Christian Menifee. I'm running for Congress because I deeply care about those communities and I want to get to work for them in Washington every single day. And my plan is to advocate for them. I want to return to the days in America where you could work 40 hours a week, get the house, the 2 cars, send your kids off to do better than you did, and retire at a reasonable age. But right now, so many people in our community are working multiple jobs. They're not making ends meet. They have no money in savings. And if something happens to their health, it could set them back decades financially. I'm running because I believe in an America that has living wage for every single person out there, so that if you're working full time, you can afford to take care of yourself and your family. I'm running because I believe in America where universities can't put you under $200,000 in student loan debt, but instead you have real pathways to good paying jobs so you can take care of you and your family. I'm running for an America that gives us universal health care because it is a right that should be guaranteed to people and not a privilege for the few. That's the America that I believe in. And across this country, you're seeing that folks believe in the same vision. I was asked earlier by a Republican at the polls, why do you talk so much about Donald Trump on your campaign? I said, hell, because when I knock on people's doors, that's what they talk about. But I want to be clear. We have to present an affirmative vision for the America that we want to see. People are suffering on a daily, and Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are making it worse. So when I talk about going out to D.C. to hold Donald Trump accountable, it's not to make headlines, it's to protect those communities. It's to make life better for those communities. So my message to MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., we got just one more election left, and then you're going to have to see me. We're in first place tonight, and tonight is a time for celebration. But we have another journey ahead of us. We have another race. And I think what we learned from this first round of voting is that the community is with us overwhelmingly. But I'm going to have to keep running. I am still running. I'm running in the runoff, and I am running in the 2026 primary for the 18th Congressional District. So I'm asking y'all to dig deep. I'm going to be calling you for your help, for your support, for your money, for your volunteer time. Same way I've done in the past. I see some of y'all trying to duck me. There it is, there it is. But if we want to bring lasting change to our communities, then the fight must continue. From the bottom of my heart, I am so grateful for each and every one of y'all. And the promise, the commitment that I leave you with here tonight is when y'all send this campaign to Congress, when y'all send me to Congress, I will work full days, full weeks, full months, full years. I will never take this job for granted. And I will never forget that it is not about one member of Congress. It is not about trying to be famous. It is not about trying to boost yourself. It is about serving folks in the communities, from Acres Homes to Cashmere Gardens to Homestead to Humble to Third Ward to all across the 18th Congressional District. This district has my heart, and I look forward to serving you in Congress.
Okay, so we have just wrapped up a hearing from Christian Menifee. He is the leader in the race for Congressional District 18, jumped out ahead of the other contenders. Really, there's just three in this race. Menifee with the lead, followed by Amanda Edwards, and then Jolanda Jones as well. But very excited there among his supporters and thankful for that lead and expressing his gratitude and talking about some of the things that he thinks helped propel them there, talking about taking on President Trump and Ken Paxton as well.
Yeah, he's talking boldly about representing the folks in the district. A historic district, which, by the way, was formed after the 1965 Voting Rights Act as part of redistricting. There's the numbers right now. Menifee says he's first. He is right now, 32%. Amanda Edwards, who is another up-and-coming young politician who has run before, trying to find her footing tonight. She's second at 25%, and Jolanda Jones, also a person with experience campaigning and being in office, at 19%. Only the top two will move on to a runoff election, which will happen perhaps as late as mid-January. So whoever ultimately wins this special election, Mia, they're only going to be in office for about maybe, 11 months or something like that?
It's a short term.
It's a short
That's for
term
certain.
to fill the unexpired term, of course, of Sylvester Turner, we have watched a lot happen over the last 2 years to get us to this point tonight.
Yes, and that's with 51% of precincts reporting right there. And we understand from Tanisha Hudspeth, that is the director of Harris County elections, she shared that were still people voting as of the 8 o'clock hour. And you know how it works here. As long as you're in line by 7 p.m., you're allowed to cast your
Polls
vote.
stay open.
So she said they still had people voting. We've had 226,000, she said, that have voted. So we're going to continue to watch the numbers. It's still relatively early, but Menifee expressing his gratitude and excited about this early lead that we're seeing.
Yeah, we were actually surprised because Amanda Henderson was at the Multi-Service Center election place on West Gray in Montrose / River Oaks, and there were people in line. It was like 7:30. It was kind of surprising, but people get off work. It's their first opportunity to get to the polls. And once they're in line, as you mentioned, they can stay in line no matter how late it is. So you got more people voting. It's about 70% of registered voters who have voted so far. There are 600 vote centers across the county. It's a big area, one of the largest in the country, especially when it comes to voting. And we are waiting to hear from Amanda Edwards, who is polling second right now in this special election. She is supposed to speak at any moment now. It'll be interesting to hear what she has to say, how she frames her speech after hearing from Christian Menifee.
And our experts and political analysts that we've been speaking with tonight and who are here in studio with us expressed earlier that there's really no surprise thus far how these numbers are playing out and who we are seeing in the lead. One thing that they observed was it appears that voters are going for the familiar name. There's some ID recognition there as well too, with Menifee, the Harris County attorney, and then Amanda Edwards being involved in Houston politics as well.
Yeah, Menifee probably spent the most money, I think, on commercials based on just viewing what we saw on television, and clever commercials, I would say. And whether they're effective, well, right now, proof is in the pudding. He's at 32%. We'll see what happens as the night goes on. We still have a ways to go, but it looks like right now, it looks like it's going to be Menifee and Edwards in a runoff, which is about what people expected.
And by far, this is the biggest headline race coming out of Houston, right? A lot of the other talk and discussion tonight has been based around those propositions and amendments to the Texas Constitution, over a dozen that voters had to tackle on the ballot. But for people in the 18th, this is the big headline race. And this is a race of national significance as well, too, that the nation is watching tonight, especially with the redrawing of the lines and potentially what's going to happen there as we move forward as well.
The redrawing of the lines threw a wrinkle into everything. Let's go to Orko Manna. He's now at Election Central, where things have been running pretty smoothly. Orko?
Yeah, Len, smoothly, and as I've been saying, we are just now seeing ballots start to arrive here at election headquarters. You can see over my right shoulder here, they've opened this garage door, and we've started to see some of those bags of ballots be wheeled in to this election headquarters warehouse space. This is a warehouse near Bush Airport. Right now, it's kind of in a lull. You know, this is just the beginning. We just started seeing those ballots arrive, but we were seeing them being wheeled in on some carts, some big bags that have been coming in from the different polling locations across Harris County. Again, there are 600 vote centers that were active today and that they were taking those ballots from those locations. And you can see here we've got one of those bags being carried by an election worker to this section of the election headquarters warehouse where those votes will actually start to be counted again once they're all processed and kind of brought through this area. As you can imagine, Harris County being the largest county in Texas and the third largest in the country, it's going to take quite a while for those ballots to arrive here, again, for all of the ballots to arrive here, but we are seeing those bags of ballots start to get here from those 600 polling locations. We know elections workers and constables' offices are all working to get those ballots here as quick as possible. Of course, as you can imagine, with the county being as big as it is and with issues like traffic sometimes arising, it could take some time. Tanisha Hudspeth, the Harris County clerk, says that it will take quite a while for all of the ballots to arrive here. But again, they have all of these election workers prepped and ready to go. Again, we've been seeing folks get ready and bring those bags as they slowly start to trickle into election headquarters here. You see those carts that they're wheeling out. They're wheeling them out, taking those bags of ballots from trucks and different vehicles that have been driving them here, and then wheeling them in, and then they've been going to tables back there where some election workers are taking those bags, getting them prepped, and then bringing them over to another section of this warehouse to actually start counting those ballots. Again, there are 600 vote centers that were open today for in-person voting, and again, 600 in-person voting locations. It's going to take quite a while for all of those ballots to arrive here. Again, I'm told that election workers have been preparing and have been trained extensively to make sure that they get these ballots in as quickly as possible, start counting them as quickly as possible so we can get those updates. We're actually going to go get a closer look at this process in just a little bit here, but for now, we're going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, appreciate the rundown from election headquarters tonight. Orko Manna, thank you. And a reminder, you're watching special election night coverage on KHOU 11+. We thank you for staying with us. I'm Mia Gradney.
And I'm Len Cannon. Tonight, Americans making their voices heard in elections locally, as well as some big national races.
Some of the most closely watched races across the country include the race for the New York City mayor, the Virginia and New Jersey governor races, the Virginia attorney general, and a proposition in California that would allow for congressional redistricting in that state in response to the redistricting here in Texas. Here's Erica Brown now with an update.
Zohran Mamdani, a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, cast his ballot Tuesday, hoping to become the next mayor of New York City.
It is time now for a new day in our politics.
Mamdani is facing former Governor Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat running as an independent, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. President Trump is telling New Yorkers to back Cuomo, writing on social media, quote, "You really have no choice."
The president does not support me. The president opposes Zohran Mamdani.
In a tight race for New Jersey governor, voters are choosing between Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli.
It doesn't matter if it's national or local. Every decision that these politicians make affects at some point. It trickles down to your own homes.
Here in Virginia, voters are also deciding on their next governor, another early test for both political parties and President Trump ahead of next year's midterm elections.
There's so many things at stake.
Former Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is facing off against Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears in Virginia's governor's race, with the government layoffs top of mind for some voters. CBS News projects Spanberger the winner of the Virginia race.
You all chose leadership that will focus relentlessly on what matters most. Lowering costs, keeping our communities safe, and strengthening our economy for every Virginian.
President Trump encouraged Virginians to vote Republican, but he did not formally endorse Earl Sears, his party's candidate for governor. Erica Brown, CBS News, Alexandria, Virginia.
All right, we've got some breaking news to tell you about right now. The race in the country, perhaps, in New York City. CBS News is projecting that Zohran Mamdani is the winner, and the next mayor of New York City, he would become the youngest mayor in New York City in more than a century, beating Andrew Cuomo, the former governor, who would have been the oldest first-term mayor in New York City. This is quite something.
So what are we thinking about these results? Does this come as any surprise? We know this has been the major headline leading into election night.
Yeah, this is definitely a surprise. I think that you are certainly going to see some fireworks from this. I think it's also to some degree a referendum on disappointment with Donald Trump. Yeah. The amount of money that's been raised, the turnout itself is all a signal that Democrats are hoping to see a turnaround for what's to come in 2026.
And Vlad, how do you view this?
Well, I think a blue district, a blue city elected a blue mayor. So I think they're basically choosing to keep things as they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly they're rejecting President Trump. They're making their voices heard against him, but they didn't do any kind of things to change the needle.
And speaking of President Trump, it was so interesting up until even today, him throwing his support behind Cuomo, right? Yeah. Who formerly they had much disdain there. I think the president was trying to pursue him legally and everything. And so he's throwing his support behind him, but voters saying something else.
President Trump is very focused on the ultimate outcome and the transactional relationship. So he's perfectly willing to let bygones be bygones if it can help him advantageously politically right now. It's not surprising that he went with Cuomo because he completely despises Mondani, but it remains to be seen how that relationship is going to pan out now.
And so what does this say, when you zoom out and look at this election and start thinking about nationally, and also what we're seeing tonight in New Jersey and Virginia as well, Democrats leading the races there. What do you think about that when it's the bigger view?
Well, again, I think we have to look at the national picture in terms of politics today. And I think Mondani was able to address young voters, people who have been disconnected. Now, whether or not that will play out in suburban America in terms of winning congressional seats, I'm not sure. I'm sure the Republicans are going to use this and paint Mondani as some radical, progressive,
Well,
whatever.
that's already happened.
Yeah, they've been doing that.
He's a democratic socialist. He's only 34. He really doesn't know what he's doing.
He's Muslim and all of that and everything that goes with it. However, for a party that really has been struggling for a message, does an affordability agenda, does it resonate across America, and does it help the Democrats going into the midterm elections?
How much of what's going on in this current day with the shutdown, right, and us entering the longest shutdown, how much does that play out in these high-profile races?
A lot, especially in Virginia, where you've got a lot of federal workers who are unhappy with how things have gone. So I can totally see this as a major boon. But the thing is that I think that Michael's exactly right, that you're talking about the need to hone a message for Democrats. That's the biggest thing that they need to beta test right now. And I think you're seeing some of that to some degree. And also there's a huge turnout problem in terms of urban America. And if the urban vote isn't there for Democrats, then they're not going to be able to win in a presidential. So this definitely gives us a flavor for what things are like.
And Vlad, something to point out that would I think surprise people for Donald Trump in the last election. Not only did he win his main base supporters, he was winning Hispanic voters. He was winning some young African American voters. It was really shocking. I guess the question is, we'll see in the midterms how things look and whether he can continue to build on that.
Yeah, President Trump was able to actually build on a lot of efforts that were made at the state levels with the state Republican parties going into some of those districts that have historically voted for Democrats and making inroads. Certainly in South Texas, certainly across some of the areas that we've seen across Houston, even shifting northwards. But the president has focused on doing some of those things, and Republicans are doing that nationwide. It looks like tonight that didn't translate into gains in Virginia and New Jersey. But the narrowing margins seem to indicate that there may be room to make up that mode.
And so we're already seeing on social media conversation around these results in New York with the New York mayor's race and Mondani winning there and being declared the winner. Governor Abbott right here in Texas tweeting tonight, essentially expressing his sorrows and RIP for New York City. Not as a big surprise is seeing that, of course, Governor Abbott is a Republican and a staunch Trump supporter, but the entire nation is watching this, including the governor of Texas.
Well, I don't think it's surprising when you consider that the governor, I just saw this today, and I only saw the headline and I didn't hear it. He was going to place 100% tariff on people from New York.
It was a joke, right? In jest.
Oh, it was a joke. That's right.
Yeah, it was in jest. But I think, he's watching that race closely, and would he at all be thinking about what type of impact or influence that could have here in Texas as well?
It's possible, yeah. I mean, Texas is a place where you've got lots of people moving from its, escape kind
got
of.
A lot of Californians.
So there is certainly something to that. The politics of that definitely are ever shifting, but I think Republicans are going to make a lot of this. It may mean actually very little, but it definitely is a talking point they're going to use.
The question is, as we turn the corner to the midterms, based on what we're seeing so far tonight, does it look like that there's a shot at Democrats retaking Congress?
A recapture, a comeback.
It's really hard to know, right? Yeah. I mean, this is this sort of microcosm, so it's impossible to extrapolate. But it definitely gives Democrats some hope that there is momentum, and that's really what they needed, because it felt for a long time like the Trump blanket had just kind of stifled all of the opportunities.
Right. And the other issue is the Prop 50 in California in terms of this cascading redistricting, and I think that will pretend and also have a good impact on how we look at the midterm election.
Huge for the country, because California has so many districts.
Absolutely.
But you have also other Republican states
Right.
that are redistricting as well, North Carolina, Ohio, Indiana. So
Right.
it's going to be really something to watch.
And a huge gift for Gavin Newsom, who's looking at 2028. So
That is
that's
true.
in his lap.
Both parties watching very closely
Yes.
tonight everything that is happening in these high stakes races as well. Our own high stakes race, Congressional District 18 with Christian Menifee leading. We're going to continue to follow those numbers, follow all the election results for you right after this.